Jaya Nilo Prema Dhamma Karuna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Chaya Thakur Prabhu Kota Gela Chaya Thakur Namor Swarupa Kasanata Mor Swarupa Kasanata Kadasa Raghunata Patita Thava Kadasa Raghunata Patita Thava Kamor Bhatta Juga Kakavira Kamor Bhatta Juga Kakavira Eka Kali Kotagena Goranatara Eka Kali Kotagena Goranatara Pashanikuti Mata Anale Pashipo Pashanikuti Mata Anale Pashipo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Kelepago Goranga Gunera Sesaba Sangira Sange Jekolongila Sesaba Sangira Sange Jekolongila Sesangana Paya Kandi Narottamada Sesangana Paya Kandi Narottamada Jayamilo Prema Dhamma Akaruna Prachur Jayamilo Prema Dhamma Akaruna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Kela Chaya Thakur Prabhu Kota Kela Chaya Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Okay, just give me a second here. Okay. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where is such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatana? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das, Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So today being the glorious disappearance day of Srila Madhavendra Puri, we'll read about his pastimes as a whole chapter in the Madhya Lila. But before we do, we'll chant his famous verse. It says, Madhavendra Puri recite, this is from Madhya Lila chapter 4, text 196. Madhavendra Puri recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. Aidina dayavanatahe, Aidina dayavanatahe, Matodana takadavalokise, Matodana takadavalokise, Avidiyam todalokakatadam, Avidiyam todalokakatadam, Dayata brahmati kinkaromyaham, Dayata brahmati kinkaromyaham. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So I'm going to read a little bit here about this, this purport to this verse. Srila Prabhupada explains the uncontaminated devotees. Thank you. The uncontaminated devotees who strictly depend on the Vedanta philosophy are divided into 4 sampradayas, or transcendental parties. Out of the 4, the srimadbhagavatam sampradaya was accepted by Madhavendra Puri. Thus he took sannyas according to parampara, the disciplic succession, beginning from Madhvacharya down to the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri, the acharya named Lakshmipati. There was no realization of devotional service in conjugal love, beginning from Madhvacharya all the way down to Lakshmipati. Sri Madhavendra Puri introduced the conception of conjugal love for the first time in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, and his conclusion of the Madhvacharya Sampradaya was revealed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he toured southern India and met the Tattvavadis, who supposedly belonged to the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. When Sri Krishna left Vrindavan and accepted the kingdom of Mathura, Srimati Radharani, out of ecstatic feelings of separation, expressed how Krishna can be loved in separation. Thus, devotional service in separation is central to this verse. Worship in separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. Thus, he addresses the Lord as Dina Dayarvanat, as did Madhavendra Puri, which means, Dina means the most neglected, wretched. Daya, mercy. Ardra means heart melting with. You whose heart are melting with compassion for the most wretched. O Lord, Nata. Such an ecstatic feeling is the highest form of devotional service. Because Krishna had gone to Mathura, Radharani was very much affected, and she expressed herself thus, My dear Lord, because of your separation, my mind has become overly agitated. Now tell me, what can I do? I am very poor, and you are very merciful, so kindly have compassion upon me, and let me know when I shall see you. Lord Chaitanya was always expressing the ecstatic emotions of Radharani that she exhibited when she saw Uddhava at Vrindavan. Similar feelings experienced by Madhavendra Puri are expressed in this verse. Therefore, Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya say that the ecstatic feelings experienced by Lord Chaitanya during his appearance came from Madhavendra Puri through Ishvara Puri. All the devotees in the line of the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya accept these principles of devotional service. And it's said, I guess in the previous purport, that only 3 people really understood the full import of this verse: Radharani, Lord Chaitanya, and Madhavendra Puri. So, now we're going to kind of read this chapter. We're going to read word by word here, but we'll summarize some things, which is entitled Sri Madhavendra Puri's Devotional Service. This is chapter 4 of the Madhya Lila. And first I'll just read this introductory verse. Yasmai datum choryam chira bandham gopinata chira chora vidho bhut Shri Gopala pararasi vasaksan yat prenatam madhavendram natosmi. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Madhavendra Puri, who was given a pot of sweet rice. Actually, it's kheer, and that's milk powder called sweet rice, stolen by Sri Gopinath, celebrated thereafter as Chira Chora. Being pleased by Madhavendra Puri's love, Sri Gopal, the deity at Govardhan, appeared to the public vision. So the first part of this chapter recounts Lord Chaitanya's trip to Jagannath Puri, where after he took sannyas, he started for Vrindavan with Nityananda Prabhu. And he went for 3 days without eating or sleeping, just chanting separation, Krishna. But Advaitacharya and Nityananda knew that the devotees in Navadvip would be heartbroken not to be able to see Lord Chaitanya at least one more time, so they conspired to bring him to Advaita's house. And for a week actually, all the devotees came. They had a big kirtan every night, a big feast cooked by Advaita's wife, Sita Thakurani. And Lord Chaitanya's mother came, Shachi, to have one last view of him. Actually, she cooked. She cooked all the time for him. And there, she was so, heartbroken because her older son, Vishwarup, had already taken sannyas and gone away. The husband had died in separation. She was left with Lord Chaitanya and his wife. One of his wives died, so she had what was the second name? Vishnupriya. So that was their little family, but now Lord Chaitanya was going, so she was very heartbroken. So this moving scene where Lord Chaitanya is, she carries him on her lap still. He's got his now sannyas with no hair. And so she made him promise to make Jagannath Puri his headquarters. Then at least he'll get some news about him from the devotees, because it's not that far from Navadvip. So he agreed to that promise, and so that developed where he would go there and stayed there many years at the end. He traveled from there, and he would see the Rath Yatra every year. The devotees would go there. I don't think Mother Shachi went. Maybe went. I don't think she went there, but he would sometimes visit there, and the devotees would go back and forth. So then he started for Jagannath Puri with a few devotees. Nityananda was with him, Mukunda, Jagadananda, and one other I always forget. So Lord Chaitanya proceeded, this is Madhya 4, text 10. He proceeded to Jagannath Puri with 4 of his devotees, and he chanted the holy name, Hare Krishna mantra, with great eagerness. Each day Lord Chaitanya went to a village and collected a great quantity of rice and other grains for preparation of prasadam. There were many rivers on the way, and this was the year of the Muslims ruling most of India. So there were always tax collectors, but they didn't hinder the Lord. Finally he reached Ramuna. So this is where Chirachora Gopinath resided. At that time it wasn't known as Chirachora Gopinath, just Gopinath alone. There was no Radha. When Lord Chaitanya offered as obeisance at the lotus feet of Gopinath, a helmet of flowers, like a chaplet, it's called the chaplet, a garland for the head, fell down on the Lord. When the deity's helmet fell down, Lord Chaitanya became very pleased, and he chanted and danced in various ways with his devotees. All the servants of the deity were struck with wonder to see Lord Chaitanya's intense love, his exquisite beauty, and his transcendental qualities. Because of their love for Lord Chaitanya, they served him in many ways, and that night the Lord stayed at the temple of Gopinath. He remained there because he was very eager to taste the special kheer that was offered. As Ishwar Puri had told him the story about Madhavendra Puri got this pot of sweet rice. So the deity is now known as Chira Chora Gopinath, the deity, the Gopinath who stole the sweet rice for his devotee Madhavendra. So now it tells the story of Madhavendra Puri's devotional service, how it all began, and now in Vrindavan. So he came to Govardhan Hill, and he was almost mad in ecstasy of love of God. He didn't know it was day or night. He would stand up, fall down. He couldn't discriminate with the proper place. So he circumambulated the hill and went to Govindagud and took his bath. And then he sat beneath the hill to take his rest, and described that he would just go to drift off. He would continue to engage in his intimate service with Krishna in his mind. So while he's sitting beneath a tree, kind of relaxing, a young cowherd boy comes. Smiling, he addressed, "Oh, Madhavendra, drink the milk I brought. Why don't you beg some food to eat? What kind of meditation are you undergoing?" When Madhavendra saw the beauty of that boy, he became very satisfied, but he didn't recognize him as Krishna right away. He, just hearing his words, he forgot all hunger and thirst. Madhavendra said, "Who are you? Where do you reside? How did you know I was fasting?" But sir, I'm a coward boy, and I reside in this village. In my village, no one fasts. In this village, a person can beg food from others and eat. Some people drink only milk, but if a person doesn't ask anyone for food, I supply him all his eatables. The women who come here to take water saw you, and they supplied me with this milk and sent me to you. I must go very soon to milk the cow, but I'll be back to take the milk pot from you. And then he immediately left and kind of disappeared. Madhavendra was filled with wonder. After drinking the milk, he washed the pot and put it aside. He looked toward the path, but the boy never returned. Madhavendra Puri couldn't sleep. He sat and chanted Hare Krishna, and at the end of the night he dozed a little, and his external activity stopped. In a dream, so this is the theme here, is that a lot of dreams take place, and they're all very important. So in a dream he saw the same boy. He came before him, and holding his hand, he took him into a bush in the jungle. He showed Madhavendra the bush and said, I reside in this bush, and because of this I suffer very much from severe cold, rain, wind, scorching heat. Please bring the people of the village and get them to take me out of this bush, then have them situate me nicely on top of the hill. Construct a temple on top of that hill, Govardhan, and install me in that temple. Then bathe me with large quantities of cold water so my body may be cleansed. For many days I've been observing you. I've been wondering, when will Madhavendra come here to serve me? I've accepted your service due to your ecstatic love. Thus I shall appear, and by my audience all fallen souls will be delivered. My name is Gopal. I am the lifter of Govardhan. I was installed by Vajra. Vajra is the grandson of Krishna. And here I am authority. When the Muslims attacked, the priest who was serving me hid me in the bush in the jungle, and then he ran away in fear. Since the priest went away, I've been staying in this bush. It's very good you've come. Now just remove me with great care. After saying this, the boy disappeared. Madhavendra awoke and began to consider. And he lamented, I saw Krishna. Now he realized that the boy who came was Krishna. I saw Krishna directly, but I couldn't recognize him. Thus he fell down in ecstatic love on the ground. Madhavendra cried for some time, but then he fixed his mind on executing the order of Gopal. Thus he became transformed. In the morning, after taking his bath, Madhavendra entered the village and assembled all the people. The proprietor of this village, Govardhanadhari, Giridhari, is lying in the bushes. Let's go there and rescue him from that place. They're very dense, so we'll not be able to enter the jungle. Therefore take choppers and spades to clear the way. All the people heard this with great pleasure. According to his directions, they cut down bushes, cleared a path, and entered the jungle. When they saw the deity covered with dirt and grass, they were struck with wonder and pleasure. After they cleansed the body of the deity, some of them said, this deity is very heavy, no one person can move him. So some of the stronger men assembled and took him to the top of the hill. Madhavendra Puri accompanied him. A big stone was made into a throne, and the deity was installed in it. Another big stone was placed behind the deity for support. All the Brahmin priests of the village gathered with 9 water pots. Actually, I think that 9 means new. You know, the word 9 and new in Bengali is the same, Nava. It's new water pots. It comes up again. And they brought the water from Govindakund, filtered it out. When the deity was installed, hundreds of new water pots were brought from Govindakund. There were musical sounds, bugles and drums, singing of women. During the festival, the installation festival, some people sang, some danced. All the milk, yogurt, and ghee in the village was brought to the festival. Various foods and sweetmeats, as well as other kinds of presentations, were brought there. So all the villages are very ecstatic, and they perform like an anakuta, day after day. Anakuta is like piling up a big mountain of food and feeding everyone. They took all the food available in their storerooms. So it describes the installation, how the deity was massaged, how he was properly installed. Big bath was performed with 5 nectars and 5 liquids from the cow. So all this is going on, and then it describes how Bhoga Arti was performed. So they brought all their stock of rice, dal, wheat, and they engaged Brahmins. So they described it in detail. And then after all of this, it says 2 Brahmins came from Bengal, and Madhavendra Puri initiated them and installed them. They were the permanent pujaris there. And it was all arranged in one day, this whole festival. So that's kind of a miracle. All this was accomplished by the potency of Gopal. So all this is going on. Now, then the Lord was laid down to rest on the bed. And Madhavendra Puri gathered all the Brahmins and prepared the prasadam and said to them, now feed everyone sumptuously, the children up to the aged. So everybody got a feast. Then Madhavendra took a little milk product at the end. So all the Brahmins present were initiated by Madhavendra into Vaishnavism. Okay. So then they spread the news that Gopal was there. Then people came from farther villages and they offered Annakuta. Went on and on and on. Okay. So this goes on. And eventually a rich Kshatriya built a temple. So this is all describing it. So he's staying in Vrindavan for some time now. Okay. And finally, okay. Now, in this way, the deity worship in the temple was very gorgeously performed for 2 years. And Madhavendra Puri was there the whole time. Then one day, Madhavendra Puri had another dream. In this dream, Madhavendra saw Gopal, who said, my bodily temperature still has not decreased. Please bring sandalwood from the Malaya province and smear the pulp over my body to cool me. Bring sandalwood pulp from Jagannath Puri. Kindly go quickly. Since no one else can do it, you must. So suddenly he's getting another dream, another order, and he takes it to heart. After having this dream, Madhavendra became very glad due to the ecstasy of love of God, and to execute the command of the Lord, he started east toward Bengal. So to go from Ramuna down to Puri is not Ramuna, I'm sorry. To go from Vrindavan down to Orissa is a long trek. So, before leaving, he engaged various people in various duties, make sure the deity worship was going on. Then on the order of Gopal, he started for Bengal. When Madhavendra arrived at the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur, the Acharya became very pleased, and upon seeing the ecstatic love of God, it manifested in Madhavendra Puri. Advaita Acharya begged to be initiated by Madhavendra. After initiating him, Madhavendra Puri started for South India. So Advaita Acharya is really officially on the level of Lord Chaitanya's guru, Ishvara Puri, disciple of Madhavendra. But he always wanted to be regarded as a servant. So you know the story how he preached Mayavadam, so Lord Chaitanya would chastise. So there's a lot of nectar in understanding. Okay. So then, going to South India, Madhavendra Puri visited Ramuna, where Gopinath is situated. Upon seeing the beauty of the deity, Madhavendra was overwhelmed. In the corridor of the temple, from which people generally viewed the deity, Madhavendra chanted and danced. Then he sat down there and asked the Brahmin what kinds of food they offered the deity. From the excellence of the arrangements, Madhavendra understood by deduction that only the best food was offered. He thought, I shall inquire from the priest what foods are offered to Gopinath, so that by making arrangements in our kitchen, in Vrindavan, we can offer similar foods to Sri Gopal. When the Brahmin priest was questioned about this matter, he explained in detail what kinds of foods were offered to Gopinath. Then he said, in the evening the deities offered sweet rice, kheer, in 12 earthen pots. Because the taste is as good as nectar, Amrita, it is named Amrita Keli. This kheer is celebrated throughout the world as Gopinath Kheer. It's not offered anywhere else in the world. While Madhavendra was talking with the Brahmin, the kheer was placed before the deity as an offering. Hearing this, Madhavendra thought as follows, if, without my asking, a little kheer is given to me, I can then taste it and make a similar preparation to offer to Gopal. Immediately, Madhavendra became greatly ashamed when he desired to taste the kheer, and he immediately began to think of Vishnu. While he was thus thinking of Lord Vishnu, the offering was completed and the arati ceremony began. After arati, Madhavendra offered his obeisance to the deity and left the temple. He didn't say anything more to anyone. Madhavendra avoided begging. He was completely unattached and indifferent to material things. If without his begging someone offered him some food, he would eat. Otherwise he would fast. A Paramahamsa like Madhavendra Puri is always satisfied in the loving service of the Lord. Material hunger and thirst can't impede his activities. When he desired to taste a little kheer offered to the deity, he considered that he had committed an offense by desiring to eat what was being offered to the deity. Madhavendra left the temple, sat down in the village square, which was vacant. Sitting there, he began to chant a holy name. In the meantime, the temple priest laid the deity down to rest. Finishing his daily duties, the priest went to take rest. In a dream, he saw that Gopinath had come to talk to him. And he spoke as follows. Gopinath is speaking. "O priest, please get up and open the door of the temple. I have kept a pot of kheer for the sannyasi Madhavendra Puri. This pot of kheer is just behind my cloth curtain. You didn't see it because of my tricks. A sannyasi named Madhavendra Puri is sitting in the vacant marketplace. Please take this pot of sweet rice from behind me and deliver it to him." Awaking from the dream, the priest immediately rose from bed and thought it wise to take a bath before entering the deity's room. He then opened the temple door. According to Gopinath's directions, he found the pot of kheer behind the cloth curtain. He removed the pot and mopped up the place where it had been kept. Then he went out of the temple. He went to the village with the pot of kheer. He called out in every stall in search of Madhavendra. Holding the pot in his hand, he called, Will he whose name is Madhavendra Puri please come and take this pot? Gopinath has stolen this pot of kheer for you. Will the sannyasi named Madhavendra please come and take this pot of kheer and enjoy the prasadam with great happiness? You are the most fortunate person within the three worlds. Hearing this invitation, Madhavendra came out and identified himself. The priest then delivered the pot of kheer and offered his obeisances, falling flat. When the story about the pot of kheer was explained to him in detail, Madhavendra at once became absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. Upon seeing the ecstatic loving symptoms manifest in Madhavendra, the priest was struck with wonder. He could understand why Krishna had become so much obliged to him, and he saw that Krishna's action was befitting. The priest offered his obeisance to Madhavendra and returned to the temple. Then in ecstasy, Madhavendra ate the kheer offered by Krishna. After this, Madhavendra washed the pot and broke it into pieces. He then bound all the pieces in his outer cloth and kept them nicely. Each day, Madhavendra would eat one piece of the earthen pot, and after eating it, he would immediately be overwhelmed with ecstasy. These are wonderful stories. Having broken the pot and bound the pieces in his cloth, Madhavendra began to think, the Lord has given me a pot of kheer, and when the people hear of this tomorrow morning, there will be great crowds. Thinking this, Madhavendra offered his obeisance to Gopinath on the spot and left for Muna before morning. Walking and walking, Madhavendra finally reached Jagannath Puri, which is known as Nilachal. There he saw Jagannath and was overwhelmed with loving ecstasy. When Madhavendra was overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of God, he sometimes stood up, sometimes fell to the ground. He laughed, danced, and sang. When Madhavendra came to Jagannath Puri, people were aware of his transcendental reputation. Therefore, crowds of people came and offered him all sorts of respect. Even though one may not like it, reputation as ordained by providence comes to him. Indeed, one's transcendental reputation is known throughout the entire world. Being afraid of his reputation, Madhavendra fled from Ramuna, but the reputation brought by love of God is so sublime that it goes along with the devotee as if following him. Madhavendra wanted to leave Puri because the people were honoring him as a great devotee, but this threatened to hinder his collecting sandalwood for Gopal. Madhavendra told all the servants of Jagannath and all the great devotees the story of the appearance of Gopal. When all the devotees of Jagannath Puri heard that the Gopal deity wanted sandalwood, in great pleasure they all endeavored to collect it. Those who were acquainted with government officers met with them and begged for camphor and sandalwood, which they collected. One Brahmin and one servant were given to Madhavendra just to carry the sandalwood. We figured it out as like 82 pounds or something. He was also given necessary traveling expenses. To pass the toll collectors along the way, Madhavendra was supplied with the necessary release papers. In this way, Madhavendra started for Vrindavan with the burden of sandalwood, and after some days, he again reached the village of Ramuna and the Gopinath temple there. When Madhavendra reached the temple of Gopinath, he offered his respectful obeisances many times at the lotus feet of the Lord. In the ecstasy of love, he began to dance and sing without cessation. When the priest of Gopinath saw Madhavendra again, he offered all respects to him and giving him the kheer prasadam, made him eat. Madhavendra took rest that night in the temple, but toward the end of the night, what do you think happened?
In the
He had another dream. It says it right here. Madhavendra dreamed that Gopal from Vrindavan had come before him and said, "Oh Madhavendra, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. Now just grind all the sandalwood together with the camphor and smear the pulp on the body of Gopinath daily until it's finished. There's no difference between my body and Gopinath's. They're one and the same. Therefore, if you smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, you will naturally also smear it on my body. Thus, the temperature of my body will reduce. Don't hesitate to act according to my order. Believe in me. Just do what is needed." After giving these instructions, Gopal disappeared. Madhavendra awoke. He immediately called for all the servants of Gopinath, and they came before him. And he said, "Smear the body of Gopinath with this camphor and sandalwood I have brought for Gopal and Vrindavan. Do this regularly every day. If the sandalwood pulp is smeared on the body of Gopinath, then Gopal will be cooled. After all, the Supreme Lord is completely independent. His order is all-powerful." The servants of Gopinath became very pleased to hear that in the summer, very hot, all the sandalwood pulp would be used to anoint the body of Gopinath. Madhavendra Puri said, "These two assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood, and you should also get 2 other people to help. I'll pay their salaries." In this way, Gopinath Ji was supplied ground sandalwood pulp daily. The servants of Gopinath were very pleased with this. In this way, the sandalwood was smeared over the body of Gopinath until the whole stock was finished. Madhavendra Puri stayed there until that time. At the end of summer, Madhavendra returned to Puri, where he remained with great pleasure during the whole period of Chaturmasya. So Lord Chaitanya told this whole story, sitting there with his few devotees that were accompanying him to Puri after, say, taking sannyasa. Thus Lord Chaitanya personally praised the nectarian characteristics of Madhavendra Puri, and while he related all this to the devotees, he personally relished it. Lord Chaitanya asked Nityananda Prabhu to judge whether there was anyone within the whole world as fortunate as Madhavendra Puri. Lord Chaitanya said, Madhavendra was so fortunate that Krishna personally appeared before him on the plea of delivering milk. 3 times the Lord gave orders to Madhavendra in dreams. Being obliged because of the loving affairs of Madhavendra, Lord Krishna himself appeared as the Gopal deity, and accepting his service, he liberated the whole world. On account of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Gopinath stole the pot of Kheer. Thus, he became famous as Kheer Chora, the thief who stole the sweet rice. Kheer. Madhavendra Puri smeared the sandalwood pulp over the body of Gopinath, and in this way he was overpowered with love of God. In the provinces of India governed by the Muslims, there was much inconvenience in traveling with sandalwood and camphor. Because of this, Madhavendra might have gotten into trouble. This became known to Gopal. The Lord is very merciful and attached to his devotees, so when Gopinath was covered with sandalwood pulp, Madhavendra Puri's labor became successful. Lord Chaitanya placed the standard of Madhavendra Puri's intense love before Nityananda Prabhu for judgment. All his loving activities are uncommon, Lord Chaitanya said. Indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. Madhavendra Puri used to remain alone. He was completely renounced, always very silent. He was uninterested in everything material, and for fear of talking about mundane things, he always lived without a companion. After receiving the transcendental orders of Gopal, this great personality traveled thousands of miles just to collect sandalwood by begging. Although Madhavendra was hungry, he would not beg food to eat. This renounced person carried a load of sandalwood for the sake of Gopal. Without considering his personal comforts, Madhavendra carried about 82 pounds of sandalwood and about 8 ounces of camphor to smear over the body of Gopal. This transcendental pleasure was sufficient for him. Since there were restrictions against taking sandalwood out of Orissa province, the toll officials confiscated the stock, but Madhavendra showed him the release papers given by the government and was able to escape difficulty. Madhavendra was not at all anxious during the long journey to Vrindavan through the provinces governed by the Muslims and filled with unlimited numbers of watchmen. Although Madhavendra did not have the farthing with him, he was not afraid to pass by the toll officers. His only enjoyment was carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan for Gopal. This is the natural result of intense love of God. The devotee doesn't consider personal inconveniences or impediments. In all circumstances, he wants to serve Krishna. Sri Gopal wanted to show how intensely Madhavendra loved Krishna. Therefore, he asked him to go to Nilachala to fetch sandalwood and camphor. With great trouble, after much labor, Madhavendra brought the load of sandalwood to Ramuna. But he was still very pleased. He discounted all the difficulties. To test the intense love of Madhavendra, Gopal ordered him to bring sandalwood from Nilachala. And when Madhavendra passed this test, the Lord became very merciful to him. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and Krishna is transcendental. It's not possible for a common man to understand it. After saying this, Lord Chaitanya read the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. This verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. Continuous rubbing increases the aroma of Malaya sandalwood. Similarly, consideration of this verse increases one's understanding of its importance. As the Kaustava money is considered the most precious of valuable stones, so this verse is similarly considered the best of poems dealing with the mellows of devotional service. Actually, this verse was spoken by Radharani herself, and by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Madhavendra. Only Lord Chaitanya has tasted the poetry of this verse. No fourth man is capable of understanding it. So Madhavendra recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. So I remember when I was working on this book back in '75, and I'm reading this, because I went into memorizing verses. So now I'm reading all of this praise of this verse. So I immediately memorized the verse and I was chanting. That's a great power, actually, this verse. So you weren't here. We chanted it. You know it? Aidina Dayar Natahi.
Aidina Dayar
Natahi. Aidina Dayar Natahi.
Aidina Dayar Natahi.
Madhavanata Kadavalokise. Kadavalokise. Vidiyam Twadaloka Kataram. Daita Brahma Dikinkaromyaham. So, Balaram, please work on this verse, get it down really good today. Today's a good way to get chanted like 10, 20, 30, 40 times. Oh my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now?
Where is that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita?
This is verse Madhya 4, 197. I read the purport to this, I don't know if you hear it. When Lord Chaitanya recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground unconscious. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. When Lord Chaitanya fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Nityananda quickly took him on his lap. Crying, Lord Chaitanya then got up again. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced and sang. Lord Chaitanya could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, Aidina, Aidina, repeatedly. Thus he couldn't speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. Trembling, perspiration, jubilant tears, shock, fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Lord Chaitanya's body. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath saw Lord Chaitanya dance in ecstasy. When many people crowded around Lord Chaitanya, he regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding arati performance. When the deities were laid down to rest, the priest came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Chaitanya. When all the pots of sweet rice were placed before Lord Chaitanya, he became very pleased. In order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priest. Then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed among the 5 devotees, and they ate the prasad. Being identical with Gopinath, Lord Chaitanya had already tasted eaten the pots of sweet rice. Yet just to manifest devotional service, he again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. Lord Chaitanya passed that night at the temple engaged in congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing the Mangalarti, he departed. In this way, Lord Chaitanya personally tasted with his own mouth the transcendental qualities of Gopalaji, Gopinath, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. Thus I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God. One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of God at the lotus feet of Krishna. That's encouraging. Praying at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Hare Krishna. So we'll leave it at that. We'll resume tomorrow. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.